Welcome to video 4 of 4 of the motor install on the 2003 Honda Shadow 1100. Right now I'm hooking up one of the fuel lines to the carburetor, and now we're going to take and hook up the starter enrichment valve. Okay, and on the starter enrichment valve, at the end of the cable, first goes on the spring, then the little like valve that opens and closes to, again, this is sort of your choke. I've mentioned that in other videos, and there's one on each carburetor. Now with that in, take and we'll situate it in the hole it goes into in the carburetor, and we'll start tightening that plastic nut. And after tightening the plastic nut as much as I can with my fingers, I'm going to take a 14mm wrench and give it a few more turns. It does not have to be extremely tight, and we'll take care of that. Now that the plastic nut for the starting enrichment cable is tightened, we're going to just merely hook up the hose that goes to the radiator, and then it eventually goes to the overflow tank. The overflow tank's back under the bike. I never disconnected it, but I did at the radiator. And again, using a pair of long needle nose pliers, but with a bend on them. And it works in there. Not a lot of room, but that is taken care of. And now, using the same needle nose pliers, I'm going to hook up the hose for the air vent joint that sits between the two carburetors. And this is your air vent hose. Now with the air vent hose connected, I'm going to tighten the clamps between the carburetor and the cylinder head with the Phillips head screwdriver. Make sure these are good and tight. You don't want any vacuum leaks. If you have them not tightened correctly, you'll end up with a vacuum leak and the bike won't run properly. Now, before I tighten the other two clamps between the carburetor and head, those rubber boots, I'm going to hook up another fuel line that goes to the other carburetor. Hook the simple one up first. This one's not quite as easy to get to. And here is just a peek at the fuel line hooked up to the carburetor that we just completed. Now we are going to tighten these other two clamps, these intake clamps to carburetor. And even though I don't have one, a longer Phillips head screwdriver would make the job easier. But anyhow, now we're going to hook up the next starting enrichment valve, and there's our spring on. And again, this little needle point valve that goes on. You see, it just hooks on that little notch on the end of the cable, and there that be. And then we'll put it into the carburetor. Yes, I personally think that these starting enrichment valves are one of the more irritating jobs on this motor project, or simply if you just be doing the carburetors, which on that I'll put a link in right here. I have a video where I just remove and install the carburetors on that bike. Okay, now we're going to hook up the bracket that holds these cables where they're supposed to be, from the starting enrichment cables to the throttle cables, both the push and the pull. Take notice the screws that hold this are two different sizes. You're not going to mix them up. The first one I put in is quite a bit larger than this one. Okay, now with the bracket back on, we're going to install our push and our pull throttle cables. I'm going to put the first one in that goes up above, but I'm not going to slide it into the bracket just yet. Take it, and now with back behind the bracket, the cable, take it and hook it into the upper hole, into the throttle linkage. Okay, and now we're going to take the other cable, and it goes into the other. You can't go wrong now. There's only one hole left, and we're going to slide that into place. Again, hook them both to the throttle linkage before you fasten them in the bracket. It makes the job easier, at least in my opinion. Hooked to the linkage, now we can slide them back where they were in the bracket and tighten the nuts. I loosen these a little bit each way. If down the road it would need adjustment, I can adjust it, but I think it's pretty close to where it had sat. All right, now just try the throttle, and you can see it does operate smoothly, so that's good enough for now. Now we're going to take, and this is hook up a spark plug wire, and it's mostly to just get some items out of her way. All right, now it's time to install the sub air cleaner, and it's sort of, you hook up the one hose to the carburetor on the right side of the bike. Then you can take the main air cleaner housing assembly itself, shove up under the frame. There's not much room for it, but then once you get that in, slide the other hose on the other carburetor. Now the time has come to put the rest of the air duct to the main air cleaner into place, starting with this one piece on the carburetor that's on the left side of the bike. And you can see here, I'm going to show you when it's slid on, there's like a little groove cut in the rubber that matches up with that where it's molded on the carburetor. And now we'll put this next piece of this air duct work in, which if you look, there's an arrow on the one that matches with the arrow on the other piece. And then, of course, this is the largest one at all. This shows back into where it's molded into the frame of the bike, the opening of it. Now, after that, we can take and tighten all the clamps on where they all slid together, the air duct work. And again, they're all Phillips head screws. And I did locate a longer Phillips head screwdriver from I couldn't find earlier in the video. I had one. I think I said I didn't have one. Yeah, I have one. I just couldn't find it, but it's located now. As I have said earlier, I hope the pictures answer more of your questions. And a lot of this is hard to explain, but you can see from watching where everything is located at. Now it's time for this little purge canister. And taking it just fits in sort of one way, and we'll hook up the one tube hooks to it from below the frame. And it's the larger one. You can see I'm still haven't bolted the purge tank fast yet. I'm holding it while I'm shoving the hose into place. Alrighty, now we'll ray out the other tube too, which actually, in theory, it also goes under the frame. But what I meant to say, it actually hooks still on top of the purge tank that you can. It's a lot easier to get to than the other one. Although it's still like everything on the motorcycle, it's still not the easiest. Everything is crammed into a small area. Now, after all that, there's one washer. It's made to sit down into the plastic part of that purge container, and there's our bolt that holds it, and that will hold that in place. It's only held on by the one bolt. Now, I'll merely just lightly tighten the bolt, and another easy step. Don't forget to put the radiator cap back on. And now we're going to put this cover over the clutch cable. Now, once you install this in place, it partially holds this, like there's so much on a motorcycle. There's little, like, rods that slip into a hole with dimpled ends. And then here at the bottom, there's a stud, and this one nut goes on it. Indeed, this nut is down low with the bike sitting on the kickstand, but anyhow, we're bent down installing it with no major problem. You could, if you wanted, I suppose, and had one use a motorcycle jack. Now we'll just tighten the nut some. And here at the top, I'm going to show you, it's hard to see, there's little tabs shoved back in. And on that, okay, there's this like uh, key that slides down on the tab that holds it at the top. It's hard to see, but I hope I have good enough pictures that you understand. Now we're going to install these covers at the front of the frame right behind the fork. And on the frame are two little tabs that are molded in, and there's two holes in this cover. First you slide them in that, pull it back towards you, and once it's pulled back towards you, it just pops into place. Maybe not quite as simple as that. You have to line up. You can see the little brass tab that slides into the hole right there. My finger is on it. Now pull my finger back out and we'll try this again. The first time was a failure. I suppose that takes care of that. And then at the top, there's still a little Phillips head screw that holds it at the top. And that's once it's this far, the screw hole hopefully lines up. If it doesn't, it must not be properly on those pins at the front of the bike or such. And now comes time for the second cover, the one on the right side of the bike. We just completed the left, and it's basically now this one slides sort of overlaps like the other one, and there's a little rubber grommet there to protect the edge of it there that I knocked off, and there There's a good picture of it sliding back into place, and just install the screw. Alrighty, the end of this is in sight. We're going to set the gas tank back on, but before we get too far, taking this before it's set completely in place, there's a hose here that hooks to the bottom of the tank, and push that up into place. And once that's into place, then we can finish eventually here putting it the whole way back on. Oh, I almost forgot we have the main fuel line here to hook up to the fuel petcock, and then I'm going to use their reliable pliers with the bend on the end, blowing it on those pliers. Alrighty, the tank is situated in place. Now don't forget the big washer and the bolt that goes in the rear part of the tank. I'm just going to tighten that with my fingers for the moment, and then move up to the front of the tank and install the smaller bolt. But don't forget the washer first. And after they're installed in here a little bit, we will tighten them. And that's where this video is going to end. If you've made it this far, all that's left is the seat, and I'm sure you can handle that if you haven't, like I say, had any major issues up to this point. And the front bolt here I'm tightening is an 8 millimeter. Just thought I would mention that. And as always, thank you for watching. I appreciate any questions you have or any subscriptions. And here, tighten the bolt. And that concludes the project. And this bolt is a 12 millimeter head.